Hot and a good Friday to everyone out there in my racehorse land. Welcome to another edition of My Racehorse Live. Nick Hines and Sarge reporting for duty, and a happy Martin Luther King weekend to you all. And of course, with Martin Luther King weekend, it gives us an extra day of racing, including Monday there at the Great Race Place at Santa Anita and throughout the country. So hopefully you'll enjoy the show. We've got an opportunity with some racing today out at the Great Race Place. I want to remind you that we will have a watch party with the race for Squared Straight this afternoon. We'll touch on that during today's segment, in addition to Carpe Venum, who is entered to a race on Sunday, and the Astra Altea also entered there as well. And we'll be sure to keep you apprised on that. We've got a great show for you today. It's short and sweet, roughly give or take about 30 minutes. And wanted to kind of jump right to it, as we will bring in Joe Moran and all things social Hannah Bloom here in a bit. But I wanted to welcome in Gary Mandella, this man that I've known for quite some time. I remember the days where I was training when we played basketball at the YMCA down at Del Mar. I had some enjoyable memories with you, my friend. It's been kind of a wild ride, Gary. Your father, of course, Hall of Fame trainer Richard Mandella, and I want to thank you on behalf of all of us at My Racehorse because of the opportunity, not only for you to be here today, but the fact that you have enlightened us with several winners. Thanks for joining us.
No, it's things have been going pretty well lately. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for all the support. It's been a great ride with My Racehorse. We've really enjoyed this, and looking forward to when the world normalizes and we can go back to having barn tours and having you around and getting everybody the experience of horse ownership.
Yeah, I first and foremost say that, the interaction and the fact that it's all things interactive with you. And of course, you've been so wonderful, not only with myself, but on a daily basis with our racing manager here on the West Coast with Joe Moran. But, as we jump into the fact that we closed out 2020 on a high note with Moonlit to Oro, and we began 2021 with the big win with Tis Magician on January 2nd. I guess I just wanted to ask you, as far as how has the new year started, and as a general grouping, and we'll kind of touch on the individuals, but what are your thoughts going forward? Tis Magician, first and foremost, coming out of that win from last week, 2 weeks ago.
And came out of it very well. So excited to get him back onto the path of trying to get him back into some stakes where he's already proven he belongs. He's been a victim of some bad luck. It's not his fault that we sent him all the way to Dubai and they canceled that whole trip on us. He was doing so good at the time, and that race didn't come up all that tough. He would have been really live there. And then this fall, when he got good for us, had a little bit of a foot issue, and we had to miss the stake at Del Mar. But now he's over that. You saw how good he can be in the allowance race the other day, and he's just thriving and happy again, and just looking for the right spots to put him in and try to maximize his potential. He's such a cool horse to work around, Nick. He's just got the best attitude, especially around the barn. He's laid back and just kind of appreciates the people that work around him, and then you get him out on the racetrack and he's a different kind of guy. He's really tough. He likes what he does so much, he sometimes even wants to do too much of it. So just trying to take a little time now, because he just ran, figure out where the spots are going to be. Wouldn't be surprised if he's the kind of horse ended up on a plane, traveled a little bit to try and maximize the kind of places he could run throughout the year.
Well, looking at, for example, at the end of the month with the San Pasquale, when you talk about intermediate goal, you mentioned the possibility of maybe shipping at some point, noting that the 1-2 finishers, for example, coming out of that stake, the San Antonio earlier this month, are both going to the Pegasus World Cup. Would the San Pasquale be a possibility? And is there kind of a tentative target potentially being that Santa Anita handicap on March 4th? All right, so Gary is apparently frozen up. I know he didn't hang up on us, but we'll try and get Gary back on board. and bearing with us, of course, out there with the live show here on My Racehorse Live. We were interviewing
possible. No.
Gary is going to come back in. Gary, are you there?
Can you hear me this time?
Yes, I can. So
Okay.
I guess we left off with the possibility of running the San Pasquale at the end of the month. Is that even in the works as being a possibility?
Oh, absolutely, it is. You're right in saying that the Pegasus and then the Saudi Cup afterwards and the Dubai Cup after that are going to pull some top horses off of the California circuit. So he's going to be nominated to everything and taking a look at it. And the way that he feels right now, it's certainly in the realm of possibility that he could end up there.
All right. Well, that's great news on Tiz Magician. Now 3 for 13, 8 of which in the exact 179,000. You talked about the development. Quickly, would you have to agree that Drayden Van Dyke has been a key to this horse's progression and his ability to carry that speed?
No doubt. I think you and I have seen in some races where he has proven that you just kind of got to trust him. And Drayden does that with him. He trusts him to let him run his own race, and that if he allows him to be a little aggressive early, he won't take too much advantage of it and just go way overboard. And he and Drayden are just a perfect fit together. And has been a big part of the last 6 months that the Magician has had. He's had the results that he has is settling him into just kind of allowing him to do his own thing.
All right, so I'm going to backtrack just slightly now. Obviously, with the look ahead, Moonlight Doro, and coming off that win on December 13th, noting her workout on January 13th. How is she doing, and what mental and physical changes have you seen with her as she becomes a newly turned 3-year-old? All right, so it sounds as if we're still having some audio technical difficulties there with Gary. Perhaps it could be
she's
Wi-Fi.
Similar to Tiz Magician, where she's just got a great attitude and always wants to do. Hello.
All right. Okay, Gary, are you there?
Yes.
All right. Well, it looks as if we've okay, Gary. We kind of lost you in the midst of her working, and I know that we're kind of dealing with the Wi-Fi given situation, and we were actually just looking at her most recent workout. And we were talking about the physical and growth changes with her. All right. So we apparently we've lost Gary Mandella, but let's bring in Joe Moran, and we'll effort to get Gary back on board. Joe, you and I were out the other morning at Santa Anita, and Moonlight D'Oro. This is her first work back since the win. Yep. And can you give us some insight on her physical characteristics and what you've seen with her mentally, and perhaps we can throw the work back up for the viewers to see?
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's been a filly that's always been very straightforward, laid back on the track, and has done everything that we've ever asked of her. So I know Team Mandella is very pleased with her progress. The one thing I'll say is coming out of that last race, they gave her a little time in between race and work. She's put on some good weight. You'll see this is her first work back. Couldn't be doing it any easier. You'll hear the saying, the rider was like a statue, and that's really how it was. And you'll notice there's a horse, you can kind of see the feet on the inside rail, and you'll see Moonlight start to sense that horse within the final eighth of a mile into the wire, and she starts to kick it on right about here, and she finishes past the wire. The work continued an eighth of a mile past the wire, but she really finished strong. So a great first work back from her. The ultimate target is going to be that Las Virgenes on February 6th. And that would give her a few more works. So the next work, Richard said he'll come back in 5 to 6 days, possibly give her a good 5/8 and really just see how she's doing leading up to that spot.
Yeah, I think it gives us ample time for her to get cranked up. I mean, from a physical standpoint, the one thing you can appreciate about her is her athleticism. And, when you kind of tie in the races that she's had with the effort prior to that on November 7th, it should set things up quite well for her. All right, looks great. Happy with what we've seen. Unfortunately, if you're just tuning in to My Racehorse Live, we lost our connection with Gary Mandella, assistant to his father, Richard, and we'll try to get him on another show. But on the heels of that, as we talk Team Mandella, Joe, I wanted you to maybe enlighten us a bit on Lane Way. What were your thoughts on his race, how he came back, and what potentially would be the next step for him?
Yeah, well, the horse came out of the race great, soundness-wise. The horse is in good order, so it's nothing on that end. It's kind of been a tricky situation for him. He always runs, and it's tough to say because the horse ran an 85 Beyer. He's beaten. He runs fourth, but he's only beaten a half length for it all. So it's really hard to knock it. But we've been just a touch off from getting that next gear from him and really having that breakout performance. Leading up into that race, I thought it was a great spot for him. I personally thought from a trip perspective, I thought it set up well for him. One of the things that we've always wanted is him to be a little more forwardly placed, not necessarily on the lead, but find a race where he can put himself in the race early on. I thought he had every opportunity in that race. Unfortunately, it just didn't end up our way. So I think we'll give him a little time, kind of let him work into things just like Team Mandella has always done. They give him about 2 weeks in between race and work, and then let him kind of tell us what to go next. But I would imagine we'd come right back in that first condition allowance race.
It is curious, because people talk about timing and the fact that he's been in training X number of months. And, the one thing with Lane Way, he's very workmanlike, which we've seen with the Spendthrift Stallion into Mischief. They march. I mean, these are war horses. And I mean, the fact that you look back on September 27th, he weighed in at 1,161 pounds. He weighed in the other day at 1,153 pounds. That gives you some semblance as to the fact that he is maintaining his health. And, you and I had kind of a sidebar conversation. He might be a horse that could be better covered up and kind of open him up because he likes to, kind of keep his competitors within kind of eye distance. And I think part of his game, and I personally believe that Drayden Van Dyke is still getting to know him. While Drayden jumped on Tiz Magician and there was an immediate connection, you have a situation here with Lane Way where, he's a type of horse that you have to kind of figure out. So hopefully that will indeed come to fruition. All right, quickly, popular demand. I know that there were some questions that have been sent across regarding a horse that I'm actually very excited for, being a son of Run Happy. I know Run Happy progeny, they haven't exactly lit it up just yet. But as you and I have also talked about, I think in due time, we're going to see these horses start to perform. And what's the latest on popular demand?
Yeah, so he's still at Julie Stack's farm, not too far away from Santa Anita and Rolinda Heights. So he's got about a few weeks there. The ultimate goal was to give him 4 to 5 weeks with a rider on his back. He got in there right mid to end of December. So he didn't get tacked up right away, but was able to get under tack not too long after that. We missed a week with the rain that we had in Southern California. So I would expect about 2 to 3 weeks he'll be on track at Santa Anita. So not too long away, he'll be have his return to Santa Anita.
Yeah, and I think the key with him, this is just my personal opinion, whether you agree with me or not, but you see these horses that they start and they train as 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
And in this horse's case, I just don't think he was cut out to be that early horse. Now, Beholder's progeny, is it OB1? Is that the name? OB1?
QB1.
QB1. So QB1 is fast approaching a race from what I understand. And the one thing that you'll note, the popular demand was training right along with him. So I think the prospects for popular demand are quite positive, and I appreciate the patience on display here. And, a lot of that patience just goes into the management and ownership. So for you, My Racehorse partners out there, pat yourselves on the back as these horses continue to develop, and he, of course, into his 3-year-old year.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, I wanted to turn the page and move on to an update from last Sunday. And I know that you had an opportunity to watch this race, as I did. And, of course, the shareholder, Storm Shooter, stepped up in a big way. He added blinkers into Stakes Company for the first time, the Rego Park Stakes for New York breds. And pretty gutsy performance here, eh, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great word for it. He was sure game. I mean, doing all the dirty work on the inside of looking for trouble early on. and he fought on the whole way. I mean, we were expecting a rebound performance. I think, me and you talking before the race and Joe Mishak, we all thought he was going to bounce back. Getting that outside post position was going to be a major benefit to him. But I mean, he had every right to throw in the towel, down the stretch, and he never quit. He never wanted to lose. I mean, he probably didn't see that horse till it was too late in the end. Granted, the 8 horse ended up being the best, but I mean, a gutsy performance. So a lot to be excited with him. And like we've talked about before, with this colt possibly getting on the turf course in the future, I mean, the upside's big with him.
Absolutely. And you kind of mentioned the fact that he had pretty much done all of the heavy lifting with that effort. And, with the addition of blinkers, as a former trainer speak, Todd Pletcher winning the race with perfect moneys, I think the idea perhaps with Storm Shooter, maybe he can play around with those blinkers a little bit, but he definitely showed more assertiveness. When you look at his speed figures, earned a career best 75 Beyer speed rating, and I think that Thorograph and Ragozin sheets would concur. So when you think Storm Shooter, I had actually because I was so excited, I texting Todd after the race, he said, that's more like it. With this type of horse, what would be your anticipation of, say, for example, a next spot for him? Would it be immediately to go turf, or do you just try to establish a condition with him on the dirt and then develop from there?
Yeah, no, I think the way he ran, you would keep him on the dirt, get that win out of the way, and then kind of grow from there. I don't think you want to jump to something new right away, but I definitely think it's something in his wheelhouse that he'll be able to handle in the future.
I'm excited. It was great to see the effort. And, when these young horses come off of a race where, we look at the Notebook Stake where he finished 6th.
Yeah.
It was kind of a peculiar race. And, Jose Ortiz was down on the inside. There are a couple of folks that actually messaged in about the lead change on Storm Shooter. Isn't that just part of the process? It's a learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll come with maturity. He is still an intact colt, so all things like that could play a factor into that. But it's one thing that, as in American racing, you want to see horses change leads. But whenever you watch European racing and things like that, you'll see horses run on the wrong lead all the time. So I don't take too much in consideration with that at this point. He's still young, a lot of maturity to come, and I believe it'll come with time.
All right. So Storm Shooter, I would imagine that timing-wise, we'd probably be looking at a race in a perfect world of imperfection, roughly at about the 6-week point, and we'll be sure to keep you updated on Storm Shooter. And thank you, by the way, to Gary Mandella. Unfortunately, with the audio technical visual difficulties we had, we'll try to get him on a later show. All right, so we've had a lot of financial questions recently brought to our attention at My Racehorse from the audience. Going to aim to answer those questions for you. And first, let's start with the lease. And for those that missed it last week, here are some key points of a lease discussed by our CEO and founder, one Michael Behrens.
A good year now. Like you said, it's been around racing for a long time. And with our kind of ambitions to democratize everything thoroughbred ownership, this is definitely a part of thoroughbred ownership that's been part of the game for a long time. And just simply what it is that instead of purchasing a horse that has the value in both the racing equity and the breeding equity, you are purchasing just the racing equity. And there's a lot of attractive kind of elements about that. And one being the fact that, for a lot of people, the racing side of a horse, they understand. They understand the speed figures. They understand the class, the conditions that they're in, and they can get their head around exactly how they individually would associate value to that horse. It's very difficult when you get to the breeding world. There's macro influences and there's bidding processes and all that stuff. To separate those is really interesting and allows you potentially to be involved in horses that you would never be able to be involved in, because in kind of our assessments, lease prices can be as low as 5 to 15% of the total value. It gives you a chance to compete in lots of barns and in big races, and it winds up being like a pretty. It removes a lot of the deviations in terms of the highs and lows of the financial side of horse race ownership. So again, with our goal to democratize ownership, knowing that fact that a lot of people have been playing this, we have been on the kind of lookout for a few opportunities, and the ones that we've launched here, we are super excited by. we see a lot of deals. I mean, I know we talk about it a lot, but we maybe haven't shared it with as many people. But there's probably dozens and dozens of deals that are basically rejected for every one that we accept. And the two partners that we brought on board, Spendthrift Farms and SF Bloodstock, for these leases are the best in the game, right? These are this kind of the top tier kind of partnerships and outfits, and the deals that they gave the My Racehorse, ownership groups were right on target. So I think for us, we knew we were going to bring them to the game, but we weren't going to do it unless we brought them in a manner that was to the quality we expect. And these two operations brought us some great deals. So the lease is comprised of two parts. One is what the purchase price is to buy the racing rights, right? So all the horses that are on the site now and will be over the next couple of days, we bought the 2021 racing rights. So there was a fee to buy that. And it was pretty minimal. Like I mentioned, it's anywhere between 5 and 11% of usually the horse's value. So you're getting basically a 95% discount in many situations to be able to buy the horse. And so you'll see that. You can go through the offering pages. You'll see specifically what was paid as the lease price. That's the upfront fee to get access to that racing equity and to get the prize pool. Then you're responsible for the pro rata, training costs. And so that's what makes up the offering, which is that lease price, that discount, the training cost, and then the race earnings are then the owners. So after a race, basically you take the net proceeds from the race minus jockey and trainer and any fees are associated with it. That then is distributed back in. So it's all prepaid. It's a really very clean, simple product, which I like. I think we get a lot of feedback about people who like the simplicity of how we've made the overall microshare product. And this couldn't be much more simple, right? One-time lease fee, prepaid training for the whole year. Every race, basically net race earnings are distributed back to all the different owners. And if for any reason the leases, the horses retired halfway through, and we basically return the training cost as well. One of the things that I think is really interesting as I've gotten to know more and more of the owners on the My Racehorse platform, we have some people that love risk, right? They are like, I want to come in, I want to buy that yearling that's unproven, that was really expensive, and the horse may never make it to the races. That's just the nature of our business, and that's a scary proposition to go pay $500,000 or $1 million for a yearling that might never make it to the races. Our model obviously mitigates that risk a little bit. We have others that are absolutely risk averse. They love to be like just staying with a place in which they can try to be as risk averse as possible. And the leases definitely errs with that side of it, right? People who don't want to take the big swings, they don't have the big upside, they don't have the big downside. The leases really do that. So I think just overall, when you think about the tens of thousands of people that we have, you have all these different people that just think about how they want to enjoy and build their stable differently. And those that maybe are a little bit more risk averse, I think as they look into the details, they're really going to like it.
All right. That was our interview last week with CEO and founder Michael Behrens. And just a quick touch on the lease option, as we had discussed during the show, is that as opposed to committing fully 100% to a horse for their lifetime in lease option, it's about getting in and potentially getting on a quick wave to ascend in the stakes company, because the lease horses that have been provided thus far consist of the proven commodity. But even yet, if we were to look at the younger horses that are unraised, creating a lease option within a certain time frame. So I think the risk versus the reward is certainly there with the lease option. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any one of our team members at myracehorse.com. All right, wanted to welcome back in. Actually, it would almost be for the first time, Hannah. So long without you, but so short right here. How are you doing today, and how are things out there in the social media world of things?
I'm sorry, I've been mute. I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And obviously, we're going to bring Joe Moran back into the picture here in reference to the lease option. I know that you've got some other announcements for us, but let's tell us how they can reach out to folks out there in regard to the questions of leasing and what those potential options would be.
Yeah, so we actually get a lot of questions about transfers, and I talked to a few people in our customer service department and wanted to clear some clear some answers for that. As always, you guys can always reach out to support@myracehorse.com. For any questions, reach out on social and we'll answer as well. But basically, we just want to make sure that everyone is aware we're doing our best as possible to get those transfers done in a few business days, but they're currently, looking at the internal process that we have right now and working on fixing that. And so we understand your patience and bear with us as we kind of get this figured out as we get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, rest assured they'll get to those questions and perhaps your requests. Again, if you've sent an email or you made a call and you're waiting on a response, sure do give it the timeliness and them getting back to you. I can be assured they will indeed at myracehorse.com. All right, Hannah, on the horizon, we have the Eclipse Awards on tomorrow, and coverage of the event will be brought to you by TVG. Can you tell us more about the event? Obviously, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic 2021, things are a bit different this time around with the Eclipse Awards.
Sorry, I was muted again. Tomorrow, they're going to announce the nominations for the Eclipse Awards that I believe are on the 28th. But tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern in the afternoon and 9 a.m. Pacific, they are going to release the nominations for the Eclipse Awards. And I'm pretty sure, we might have a few nominations coming our way. But sorry, we can't get that graphic out. But if you go and look at our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, you can see the graphic alerting about watching TVG tomorrow to look at those nominations. And then I also wanted to point out, as Sarge mentioned in the beginning of the show, we will be having a Squared Straight watch party later today. I believe it'll start sometime after 1 Pacific following his race. And then also on Sunday, I believe we'll bring back in Joe Moran to talk about Carpe Venum. We've received a few questions about that, but if she runs on Sunday, we will also have a watch party for that.
Yeah, just to clarify, the nominations come out tomorrow. The actual Eclipse Awards will take place later this month on January 28th. So tomorrow they will announce the finalists, and again, in the perfect world of imperfection that we live in, Authentic there on the leaderboard for Horse of the Year, 3-year-old champion. We hope that potentially the hardware will be there awaiting him. So the 5th awards, far and away a bit different, but on TVG tomorrow, they will announce those finalists. All right. Well, that's going to do it. I want to remind you that with the watch party this afternoon with Squared Straight, be sure to check it out. Good luck to the connections, trainer Doug O'Neill and our partners. And, of course, on Sunday with the Astra, that graded stakes event, I did have an opportunity to speak briefly with Phil Diamato. It sounds as if there's going to be a few that cross into the megahertz on Monday. So the chances of her competing there, I think, are fairly good. So we'll look forward to that. And indeed, if indeed she does go postward, it was a look-see, and at 1.5 mile distance, it could work out in her favor, looking to get some black type. Well, on behalf of everyone, including Adam, my good friend behind the scenes, I know it was a challenging show today with the audio technical difficulties, visual there with Gary Mandella. But thank you, Gary, for taking out your time today. And, of course, on behalf of all of us at My Racehorse, Joe Moran, Hannah Bloom, thank you for tuning in today on My Racehorse Live. And don't forget our social media platforms so you can tune into those watch parties. Have a great weekend. Have a great day. And until next time, we'll see you in the winner's circle.